I want to express my disappointment with the handling of Budget 2025 in the Central Committee meetings of last week. I think it was surrealistic to hear certain questions asked on a budget and amendments which were already approved unanimously by Parliament in January of this year, especially after an excellent overview presented by the Minister of Finance, which included an overview of the budget which was approved and how the amendments which were also approved in January were incorporated in this new draft national ordinance. I cannot take away the authority and responsibility of Parliament to ask questions, but the way the meeting went last week has me deeply concerned. There may be some new elements incorporated in the budget next to the amendments, but the comments I received is that whoever followed the Central Committee of last week got the impression that we were handling a complete different new national ordinance, which I think is not the case. As government, we accepted that we could not resolve the technical issue we encountered during the handling of the budget after it has been approved by Parliament, and decided actually to come back to Parliament with the same budget. However, the financial content of the budget did not change, taking, of course, the approved amendments in consideration.
What you have before you today is the outcome of a dedicated effort to correct those issues without altering the essence of what was previously agreed upon. It is not typical for government to pre-incorporate amendments from Parliament into the draft budget. However, in light of the circumstances, we have made an exception. The goal was simple: to get us back on track quickly, transparently, and responsibly, so the budget can finally take legal effect. I would like to reiterate that while today's presentation focuses on the 2025 budget, unlike the previous Central Committee meeting, where I walked members of Parliament through 55 slides, detailing how all approved amendments and modifications were incorporated, I will not repeat that walkthrough today. The full presentation has already been shared with members of Parliament, and only MP De Wever submitted follow-up questions on that specific topic. As such, I would assume that it is clear that all approved amendments and modifications were duly incorporated in the budget before you today. What I will do, however, is briefly revisit the financial incorporation of Modification 1 to reinforce the rationale behind its inclusion and how it was presented and processed. Additionally, I will present the Q1 performance data, which shows promising alignment with our 2025 projections and a positive comparison to the 2024 figures. Let us approach today's discussion with clarity and a shared commitment to timely budget enactment and sound, sustainable governance. During this presentation, the following key topics will be addressed: Budget 2025, process post-approval January 2025. I will provide a short summary of the steps taken following the formal approval of the 2025 budget in January 2025. Number 2, incorporation of approved Modification 1 by government. Explanation of changes initiated by government and approved by Parliament in January 2025 and how these have been integrated into the budget. Number 3, summary of Budget 2025 figures and comparison to Q4. Presentation of the main figures and allocations within the approved 2025 budget. Number 4, Q1 Budget 2025 versus Q1 actuals, comparative analysis of first quarter budget figures versus actual expenditures and revenues. And 5, the conclusion. I will now proceed in describing the budget process from January 2025 until now. As you are all aware, budget for the year 2025 was unanimously approved by this Honorable Parliament. As part of that approval, the budget and a total of 7 amendments and modifications were adopted to be incorporated. However, during the process of formally incorporating these changes, it became evident that the amendments and modifications posed legal, numerical, and procedural challenges. These issues were primarily due to inconsistencies and technical shortcomings in how the amendments were drafted. While the intentions of Parliament were understood and clear, the amendments required further technical and legal refinement to be incorporated into the budget. Unfortunately, a resolution to these issues could not be found. Based on advice from the Council of Advice, the government formally informed Parliament that the budget, as approved, could not be ratified in its current form. This position was confirmed in the National Ordinance, which was signed off by the Governor and submitted to Parliament together with the resubmission of this new version of the 2025 budget. Since the budget being approved in January, several letters were sent to Parliament by my person, informing them of the delay and the technical nature of the challenges. On April 14, 2025, I returned to Parliament and went through the key technical issues in detail. To summarize, the main challenges included the ripple effects of amendments not being accounted for, totals not reflecting previously approved amendments, amendments submitted at the general ledger level rather than the required economic category level, and a number of other minor inconsistencies. In parallel, a formal instruction was issued by the Kingdom Council of Ministers requiring St. Martin to finalize the 2025 budget by April 30th, 2025. The government of St. Martin committed to identifying the fastest possible solution to ensure enactment. To promote full transparency, during my presentation to Parliament on April 14th, I explained the initial plan to return with a technical adjusted version of the budget, which would undergo full review by the CFT and the Council of Advice, extending the process through June. However, most members of Parliament expressed concern with this approach, particularly given the timeline and the urgency imposed by the Kingdom Council's deadline. In response to these concerns, the government revised its strategy and opted to submit the same version of the budget, now updated to include the already approved amendments and modifications.
How do ideas become plans? Plans become memories.
So you like my new room?
And dreams become your life.
This is retirement.
Do you remember when hope became a house? When that house became a home? Your ideas are everything, and we're here to help make them happen. Your idea of yes, I can happens here.
Are you SXM insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXM is cardless. Request your My SXM account today and enter the virtual office of SXM. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXM, yeah. Your social health insurances.
24/7 TV programming on www.stmartinmediacenter.com, SXM Daily News, PBS NewsHour, Now You Know, Com programs, documentary, entertainment, sports events, Saturday children's hours, religion programs, and movies. Click on SXM TV broadcast to see your favorite programs.
Some brief updates for today's press briefing, starting with the FBE review. I've taken note, and the ministry has taken note of comments and statements on the difficulties encountered by students during the FBE exams, particularly the Dutch exams. While I fully understand the frustrations expressed, as I have heard the concerns of parents and educators during the town hall meetings by the Climb Foundation, as part of the FBE review, as I stated previously, the data collection portion of that review is now complete. Currently, the Climb Foundation is finalizing the data, analyzing it, and preparing a report that should be delivered to the Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport before the end of 2025. And once that report is received, there will be recommendations and solutions moving forward on how we can adjust and adapt the existing FBE curriculum and methodology to better suit our students' needs and the needs of the country. With regards to vacation pay, as the Minister of Finance communicated to the public earlier this week, subsidized school boards have received the payout of the vacation pay. The responsibility for paying this out to subsidized school teachers now rests with the boards, and I join the Minister of Finance in urging all school boards to disburse this payment to the subsidized school teachers within soonest. And finally, on the fun side, the Dame Ruby Buttes National Short Story Contest, its first edition, is officially a go. The promotional work has been launched as of a week and a half ago. And yesterday I announced the prizes, and I will repeat them here for the general public's knowledge. The Royal Bank of Canada, RBC, has come on to offer bank accounts for the winners for first, second, and third prize, each with a significant starting amount. The intention is, of course, for these bank accounts to lead to improved financial literacy and financial stability for the winners. We additionally have Bullchance Antic and Class Electronics that have donated tech prizes to aid in digital literacy and in their writing careers. The contest is open for children ages 12 to 14, and the theme is Guardians of the Great Salt Pond, based on the concept of Caribbean futurism, where they can tailor their short stories to explain how they would incorporate thematic culture and technology in protecting our cultural heritage, which the ministry found important to do for this, the first iteration of the short story contest.
I'm sure you've taken note. There's been a couple articles in the newspapers about, in particular, St. Dominic's school, where teachers are talking about a culture that's not conducive neither for the teachers and thereby also neither for the students. I believe you made a comment that the Catholic schools fall a little bit outside your purview, so perhaps you could explain, number one, your impression of what's happening, what your plans are. And since you're saying that this falls outside your purview, so perhaps you can also explain to the public, there's a number of private schools. The Minister of Finance mentioned the Ocean View Academy, but also Learning Unlimited, CIA. Those are private schools. And then you have a number of Catholic schools. So how do you, as Minister of Education, really manage the education process?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Lee. So essentially, I think there's confusion about how our education system has been allowed to be structured over decades, actually. You have your public schools, which fall directly under the management and, for lack of a softer word, control of the Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport. And then somewhere along the lines, it was decided to set up subsidized school boards as well, and to allow persons who would like to establish a different education trajectory or pathway to start a school board and then receive government subsidy. The initial classification was that they were semi-private, but I think we can all agree that they are pretty much fully subsidized, which in a normal world would make them public schools. Ultimately, the ministry's control or influence over the day-to-day management of these subsidized schools is nil. The ministry is responsible for educational policy, We are bringing in Q3 of 2025, as I mentioned in the Central Committee of the Budget debate, the supervision of education law, which will give some additional insight into the overall management and status of the subsidized school boards. Not that it gives us day-to-day operational control or responsibility, but it will allow for the ministry to have higher levels of accountability, including academic accountability, when it comes to these institutions that receive considerable public money. Ultimately, the situation at the Catholic schools is very disheartening for me as an alumni of St. Dominic High School. However, that is for the parents and educators and the school board to solve. I'm a person who professionally believes that boards and entities need to have a refresh every few years. However, that is not something that I, as the minister, can actually execute when it comes to the subsidized school boards. So I would urge that all parties come to the table and have a conversation. And perhaps it is time for a moment of self-reflection for all involved to see how they can best solve this. Because at the end of the day, who suffers and who is the entity that I'm most concerned with is the students. Because you are facing a scenario where the school year is close to beginning and you're trying to recruit essentially your entire teaching staff. And that is a challenge that the ministry, unfortunately, cannot help them overcome because we are not responsible for the recruitment of subsidized school teachers.
Thank you. If I might ask just two clarification questions. So are there no requirements or conditions to the subsidies that you're giving to these semi-private schools? I mean, isn't that the person who controls the purse has got a lot of leverage, right?
Yes, one would hope. And this is something I have raised in Parliament as well. Interestingly enough, regarding this exact same school board, when I was a member of Parliament, to the then Minister of Education, the subsidy ordinance requires that you financially report. That's it. You just have to report on the financials. There's no further influence that the ministry or government holds over the subsidized school boards. And this is something that we are looking to rectify because ultimately, I agree, as they say in the Netherlands, we betaal bepaalt. And that is something that I think we need to get very realistic with. This is public money at the end of the day. And that is something that I have been concerned about. But the education supervision law that will be coming will address many of these concerns, and it will also include the provisions for the hair discrimination that I mentioned in Parliament. We've decided to incorporate it into that existing ordinance, since that is already on its way to Parliament, so that can also be taken up as we continue with trying to reshape education into a system that benefits the students.
So just the other clarification on the recruitment process, one of the comments that I've heard from schools is that there's clearly a need for teachers, but the work permitting process is so troublesome that very often the teachers don't arrive in time for schools.
Yes.
So is that something that you can
Yes,
work
and
on?
I've shared this with Parliament as well. There is a meeting once we are done with this round 2, 3, I'm not sure, of the budget, 2025. There will be a meeting between myself, the Minister of VSA, and the Minister of Justice to try to streamline this process. The school boards have shared this concern with me. So far, what we have agreed to is that if there are pending applications, they send it to the Ministry of ECYS, and we will send it on to the Minister of Justice. And she has been handling those as rapidly as we get them. But it is, there's quite a bit of intersectionality between the three ministries. But we are working on having some type of resolution where at least education-related permits can be fast-tracked.
Are you SXV insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXV is cardless. Request your My SXV account today and enter the virtual office of SXV. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXV, yeah. Your social health insurances.
How do ideas become plans? Plans become memories,
So you like magbubulo?
and dreams become your life.
This is retirement.
Do you remember when hope became a house? When that house became a home? Your ideas are everything, and we're here to help make them happen. Your idea of yes, I can happens here.
24/7 TV programming on www.stmartinmediacenter.com, SXM Daily News, PBS NewsHour, Now You Know, com programs, documentary, entertainment, sports events, Saturday children's hours, religion programs, and movies. Click on SXM TV broadcast to see your favorite programs.
Regarding the hot topic on the dividend withholding tax, I have previously provided clarity and reiterated that this measure will not increase the domestic tax burden for residents or local businesses. I wish to emphasize that the topic of dividend tax, along with broader tax reform measures such as the retraction of outdated taxes, profit tax reform, retraction of turnover tax exemption for casinos, and others, has been part of stakeholder consultations over past years, specifically since 2022 under the TWO project. What we must realize, however, is that discussion alone does not result in change. As Minister of Finance, I made a decision to move beyond dialogue and begin implementation. The introduction of this dividends withholding tax is the result of a deliberate policy choice aimed at ensuring fairness, requiring foreign investors who benefit from the local economy to contribute their fair share. It was recently claimed that this measure came out of the woodworks and that no discussions were held with stakeholders. I clarified this matter. Discussions were in fact held over several years with key stakeholders. What did not happen was a decision. Many matters are discussed, but ultimately parked. The difference now is that I, along with my team and the Ministry of Finance, have chosen to act in order for our country to evolve and for us to provide meaningful relief to St. Martin businesses and residents through reductions in the profit tax and wage tax. Actual decisions must be taken. That is precisely what I am doing. If we truly want to improve critical social sectors such as education, healthcare, infrastructure, and mental health services, we must acknowledge that sustainable progress demands meaningful investment in St. Martin. What we cannot do is we can no longer continue to have champagne dreams on bare budgets. In the coming weeks, the retraction law will be submitted to Parliament to formally withdraw two tax ordinances that, while still legally in effect, are not being enforced and will not be in the future. These are the Inheritance Tax Ordinance and the Land Tax Ordinance. This legislative step is being taken to create legal certainty and clarity, both for our local residents and for potential investors. Eliminating outdated and unused laws helps build confidence in our legal and fiscal framework. As I have stated before, it is time to move beyond discussions. For too long, we have talked about reform. Now it is time for action. With this retraction, we are demonstrating a commitment to meaningful, practical tax reform for the benefit of the country. I look forward to presenting and defending this legislation before Parliament in the third quarter of this year. And on to Two other topics. As you're aware, this month is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, a time to break the silence surrounding the emotional struggles our men often endure alone. Too many are taught to suppress their pain, fearing judgment if they show vulnerability. But vulnerability is not weakness, it is courage. A powerful reminder of this came to me this weekend by Renee Cotto Wilson, whose heartfelt post and poem, A Man's Pain, gave voice to the silent battles many men face. His bravery is a call for all of us to listen, support, and act. We must challenge outdated stigmas, promote open conversation, and create safe spaces where our men feel truly seen and heard. I also want to commend the ongoing hard work of the St. Martin Mental Health Foundation, whose dedication professionals continue to serve with care despite many challenges. As we raise awareness, let us remember we often expect others to tell us what they're going through. Perhaps it's time we dare to ask, how are you really doing? Let us stand united in making mental health a shared priority, not just this month, but every day. And finally, I want to offer words of congratulations as it brings me immense pride, and I'm sure that of the Minister of Education as well, and joy to extend heartfelt congratulations to all of our graduates and students who have been promoted this academic year. Your achievements are a reflection of dedication, resilience, and the unyielding spirit of our youth. Today, we celebrate the extraordinary accomplishments of several shining examples, namely Anzario Serrant, who has completed an exceptional academic journey, earning a Bachelor's of Arts in Political Science, a Bachelor of Law in Global Law, a Master's of Law in Business Law, a Master's of Law in International Business Taxation, and a Juris Doctor, demonstrating what is possible with with vision and perseverance. Sharina David, who has conquered not one, but 2 master's degrees in public health with concentrations in epidemiology, biostatistics, and health administration and leadership. Her achievement was shaped by long nights and unshakable support. Miruhia Richardson have now obtained her bachelor's degree in education, steps into one of the most noble professions, teaching. As a society, we must continue to uplift and honor our educators who carry the responsibility of shaping minds and nurturing the next generation. And I proudly recognize Mr. Tyreek Heiliger, the first high school graduate of Ocean View Academy. Tyreek's grit and determination to graduate this June 2025 is commendable, and his journey reminds us of the importance of small, supportive, and nurturing learning environments that offer one-on-one attention in a family-like atmosphere where students are truly seen and encouraged to thrive. To all graduates, continue to walk in your purpose. And to those who may have fallen short of the grade, do not be discouraged. Your journey is far from over, and your resilience today is the foundation of tomorrow's success. I am proud of you all.